Hello, everyone. Let's get started. My name is Priya. Thank you so much for joining us today. We have an informative webinar for you today addressing Brazil's new IVD regulation, which was enacted on June 1st of this month. My colleague Claudia Mayer from Brazil will provide a detailed dive into how the regulation impacts diagnostic manufacturers, what you need to do, and become compliant to this new regulation. For those of you who may not be familiar with Regdesk, we are an AI-powered RIM platform with integrated regulatory intelligence. Regulatory teams can leverage AI you can prepare, manage, and publish international submissions smarter and faster. If you'd like to learn more or have specific questions about your business needs, we'd be happy to schedule a call to discuss them further. Before we begin our discussion this morning, I'd like to turn our attention to our attendees. Thank you again for joining us. At the end of this meeting, we will hold a brief Q&A. We encourage your participation, so please refer. There's a chat button on the bottom of your screen. In the interest of time, just please submit your questions throughout the course of our talk, and we'll try our best to address as many of your questions as possible. If we run out of time, please email us your questions and we'll try to address them via email as well. We'd love to get your feedback on today's webinar and any ideas you may have for future webinar topics. So please also feel free to give us that feedback via email or via chat. So let's get started. Claudia, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Hello to all. Thank you, Priya. My name is Claudia, and I'm a Brazilian Regulatory Affairs Associate for Regdesk. And in this presentation, in this webinar, we'll talk about the new IVD Brazilian regulation and its updates. So let me share my screen here. Just 1 second.
And for the attendees, we will share the PowerPoint deck that Claudia will be sharing with you within a day or two of this webinar.
So,
perfect, we can see it. I think you need to just make it in the presentation mode. Yep, all good.
Okay. So let's start. We'll talk in this webinar about the new ANVISA RDC number 830/2023, which revokes RDC number 36 from 2015. In this webinar, we'll talk about we'll have an overview. We'll talk about the new definitions, risk classification, labeling instructions for use, technical dossier, and adjustments to regulations. So an overview, the first topic. We'll talk about the applicability. And so this new regulation applies to this following IVD devices. Likewise, the previous version, RDC 36, but ANVISA included the software definition, software applicability, sorry, and those purposes, predisposition, prognosis, prediction, or determination of physiological status. So the software definition, software as medical device definition, was included as recommended in the RDC number 657 from 2022. In this new RDC was included the exemptions. It's new. And we have here exemptions for IVD devices for clinical studies, which has a proper standard for this, and presentations consisting of 2 or more already registered devices within ANVISA, the sets. So if you have a set with 2 or more products that are already legally registered in ANVISA, are also exempt from this new regulation. And when we talk about the non-applicabilities, regarding the non-applicabilities, the same non-applicabilities as the previous regulation, but we had a new addition, that the products intended exclusively for using technical assistance or maintenance procedures. But the other non-applicabilities are the same. Passing to the definitions section, ANVISA included the maintain the IVD devices definition, but included software definitions and some new purposes, some new applicability. So aid in diagnosis and predisposition, prognosis, prediction, or determination of physiological status definitions were included into the IVD medical device definition. Also, ANVISA included the accessories definition, so we can understand accessories as products which itself is not an in vitro diagnostic medical devices, but this is intended by the manufacturer to be used in conjunction with one or more IVD device to allow or assist in a specific and directed way that the devices are used in accordance with the intended purpose. So when we have, for example, an IVD kit, and there is some tubes or pipettes, it can be considered as accessories. And ANVISA included also in this new regulation the definition of companion diagnosis medical devices. And this definition is from the IVDR, from European Union. So ANVISA included this definition here as IVD medical device essential for the safe and effective use of corresponding medicine to identify before and or during treatment patients most likely to benefit from the corresponding medicine, or to identify before and or during treatment patients at increased risk of serious adverse reactions as a result of treatment with the corresponding medication. Another definition included by ANVISA in this new regulation was the definition of the holder. We talk about registration holder. That is a company, public or private. It can be the manufacturer or importer, responsible for medical device for IVDs in Brazil, which holds the marketing authorization for the medical device for IVDs issued by ANVISA. So one thing we have to be in mind is that the holder in Brazil for ANVISA, the holder must be a Brazilian company. Another definition is the process reassessment. Is a post-market procedure carried by ANVISA for notifications and registration of medical device for process audit purposes. So it's a common process by ANVISA. It may generate a requirement. In Brazil, we call exigência, but it may generate a requirement, and it's a common practice for ANVISA, but has now been incorporated the definition to this RDC. Another definition included was the documentary repository of medical device, that is a digital tool for storing and make available documents relating to notified and registered medical device available on ANVISA's electronic portal. So an ANVISA portal, when we access the portal, we can view the instructions for use and the labels. So it is a definition included, but it's been a practice in Brazil since 2020. And the definition of software as medical device was also incorporated this definition from the RDC number 657 from 2022, which is specific for software medical devices. So let's go to the next. The classification rules, and I guess that's the boom of this webinar and of the new regulation. So following the IVDR, ANVISA grouped the IVD devices in 7 classification rules, but there is another rule. ANVISA added one more rule referring to compulsory notification diseases. In Brazil, we have a list from Ministry of Health that is called National List of Compulsory Notification of Disease Conditions and Public Health Events. So this the last rule, the rule number 8, is regarding to this classification here, the national list. So these 8 classification rules are divided in class 1, class 2, class 3, and class 4. And the class 1 and class 2 means notification process are simple process, and the class 3 and class 4 for registration ones. And let's talk about the highlights of the classification. So the rule number 1, devices intended to be used for the following purposes are classified in class 4. So the detection of the presence of exposure to a transmissible agent in blood and its components, cells, tissues, organs, or derivatives in order to determine the suitability for transfusion, transplantation, or administration of cells. So ANVISA included this definition of administration of cells, and according to the Brazilian regulation, the following standards are related to cell administration and its parameters. So we have the RDC 34 for blood, GMP for chemotherapy service. We have the RDC number 508 from 2021, and for GMP for human cells for use in clinical research that mentions Plasmodium and parvovirus. We have the ordinance, Portaria Ordinance 4 from 2017 from the Brazilian Ministry of Health about transplantation, and it mentions Epstein-Barr virus, and the last one, the RDC 771 from 2022 about GMP in cells, germinative tissues, and embryos that mentions Neisseria, Zika, and chlamydia. So we had a sanitary reframing, and it must be requested to modify the classes of these following devices according to the changes in the rule number 1. So the Epstein-Barr virus previously was class 2 and now will be reframed to class 4, as well as Neisseria, Zika, and Penos. It means Zika and dengue, Zika and chikungunya, Zika, dengue, and chikungunya, arbovirus Penos, and chlamydia, parvovirus, and Plasmodium. These were class 3 for RDC 36, the previous version, and now it must be reframed to class 4. Another highlight is regarding the rule number 2, that device for determining blood groups or tissue groups in order to ensure the immunological compatibility of blood components, cells, tissues, or organs intended for transfusion, transplantation, or administration of cells, new this one here, are classified as class 3. And one note we have is previously only irregular antibody panel, HLA, and Cobas typing were considered class 3. But now the hemoglobin subtype has been classified from class 2 to class 3 and should be subject to sanitary reframing. So when we talk about the hemoglobin subtype, we talk about A, the types A, A2, C, and S. The glycated hemoglobin remains in class 2, okay? And it's important to notice that the hemoglobin S disease now is a compulsory notification disease in Brazil. And we have some other changes from class 2 to class 3, so low therapeutic index drugs and Bacillus anthracis, Coxiella burnetii, Salmonella, flow cytometry for immunophenotyping, hydroxybutyric dehydrogenase, myoglobin, and BNP, and Campylobacter, Clostridium, Escherichia coli, Helicobacter pylori, Klebsiella, and Shigella were class 2, but now it must be reframed to class 3. And also for blood gases, they were class 2 in previous regulation, but now it must be considered as class 3 devices. We also have a reframing but downgrade of sanitary classification for immunohematology or reagent for red blood cells treated with enzymes. They were class 4 and now they are class 3. And glucose ketone bodies and lipid profile reagents for professional use, please note the professional use, they were class 3 and now must be downgraded to class 2. Another highlight we had is in regards for the point of care testing. So ANVISA removed the definition of the devices for point of care testing in this new regulation, but maintained it as follows. So blood gas reagents now are class 3, following rule 3J. Glucose reagents for professional use now are class 2. And glucose reagents for lay use must be in class 3 because they are considered as self-test, and according to rule number 4. So the self-test must be remain in class 3. Now another highlight we have is the rule 6B. So diagnostic instruments that do not use reagents are classified according to the analyte or clinical condition identifier. So those instruments were previously classified in very low classes. So now they track the classification of the analyte. Regarding the rule 3F, devices that are intended to be used as companion diagnostic medical devices are classified in class 3. Previously, by other means of classification, the device were classified as class 3, and this new regulation only made this rule official. And another one is rule 3K and L. For devices intended for screening for congenital diseases in fetus or embryo, and for screening for congenital diseases in newborns now are classified in class 3. So one thing we have to take in mind is that the certain devices can assume more than one risk classes. So we have some examples here. The 17 OHP here normally is classified in class 2. But when we talk about neonatal screening, it's classified in class 3. As well as beta HCG for pregnancy is class 2, but when we treat as a tumor marker, it's class 3. And Nistriol is normally class 2, and when you talk about congenital disorders are class 3. So depending on the indication for use, and the one who must indication this intended use is the manufacturer in the instructions for use, okay? We have the rule number 7, so Control device without assigned values are now classified in class 2. So these controls were not previously classified as IVD, and they are controls from the laboratory itself, but not the ones used for proficiency tests, which are not subject of registration. These control devices that are mentioned in this rule, the ones we're talking about, are procedure controls, not testing controls, okay? So we have here the note, a control without assigned quantitative or qualitative values refers to a control mechanism or procedure that does not provide a specific measurable result or a definable qualitative characteristic. Instead, this type of control can be used to verify the integrity, functionality, or consistency of the process or testing device without providing an exact measurement. The possibility of registering self-test devices for detecting genital infection now is open, as long as it's not considered a notifiable disease. So, in other words, self-tests that may suggest general infections are now allowed for registration, since it's not a reportable disease considered by the Brazilian Ministry of Health. We can have here an example for Candida albicans, Gardnerella, measurement of the vaginal pH, or etc. Sorry, let me back here. So now we'll talk about the notification and registration regimes defined by this new regulation. The highlights we have this is that devices with specific technical regulations must demonstrate in registration applications compliance with these regulations. So an example here, we can consider the glucometers, which must have their functionality requirements met in another regulation. And we had the stock depletion in case of registration notification change. So the holders and manufacturers must have this in mind. The stock depletion deadline for instructions for use, labels, and packages. We have until 120 days from the publication of the change, and finished products already in stock may be sold until the end of the product shelf life. And companies must assess whether there will be a need to change labeling to the requirements of new regulation and organize planning for the implementation of changes in stock composition. And for revalidation, great news is that the procedure has been simplified, and when the standard comes into force, the following documents must be presented for revalidation: just the letter of authorization and the valid GMP certificate. But one thing we have to consider is that this rule here, it's applied to devices registered after October 26, 2015, okay? For the revalidation of devices registered, first revalidation of device registered before October 26, 2015, the complete and updated technical dossier must be presented.
Claudia, we have
sorry.
a lot. No, sorry, I didn't mean to interject. Are you almost done? Because you have a lot of questions. So do you want to finish that quickly? We will be sending the deck. Maybe it'll help to address the questions quickly, if that's okay with you. Is that good? Okay. So let's go over the question. So one of the questions is what do you mean by technical assistance and maintenance procedures for the new intended edition?
So technical assistance and maintenance are when we have when we have an instrument that needs maintenance or technical assistance. So devices use it exclusively for IVD devices use it for only technical assistance, and maintenance are not be considered for this regulation. This new regulation applies only to the IVD products that will be used for testing in human samples. So technical assistance and maintenance are not. Can I stop sharing my screen here?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
And then we'll share the deck with everyone. Yes.
Okay.
And then the question was, another one was, can you expand on the exemption? So what is exempted per the new law?
Well, by the new law, the exemptions we have, sorry, just 1 second. The exemptions we have, I need to open the regulations because I mentioned only the. So we have medical devices for IVD designated to clinical studies, and the sets, the presentations made by 2 or more medical devices. They are only the exemptions mentioned in this RDC.
Okay. The other question is, the classification of the IVDs, is it based on the substrate and the sample cells, or is it based upon the actual IVD?
Sorry, so the classification. Let me read here. Sorry.
This is the classification of the IVD. Is the classification of IVDs based on the new law, is it determined by the substrate of the sample cells, or is it based on the actual IVD? I think it's based on the actual IVD, right? Not on the substrate.
Yeah.
And then
only for devices.
Okay, it's based on the actual medical IVD. For manufacturers who have kits, and those kits have been up classified to class 3, what is the timeline for up classification and obtaining the BGMP?
Well, so we have to, it was the last slide here. So the deadline for up classification is 1 year from when the new regulation came in force. So from June 1, the up classification from notification to registration must be done in 345 days a year.
Okay, got it. And then so what about general purpose IVD instruments not tied to a particular analyte or clinical condition? Are they still low risk, not requiring registration? So these are just general purpose IVDs.
No, general purpose IVDs must accompany the classification of the analyte.
Of the analyte.
So
okay.
So if we are treating about lipid, normally it's class 2, so the instrument's class 2. But when we talk an instrument that monitors, that will monitor dengue, chikungunya, etc., so now class 4 and so on.
Okay, got it. And then there was a question that said, you're making mention of, I know this new law is called the RDC 830/2023. They're saying, is this a new regulation, or is it an amendment to an existing regulation?
No, in Brazil we say, sorry, it's a new regulation, but it's an update from the previous RDC. So
Okay.
We talk about new regulation, but it's not new, it's an update.
Got it. And another question for general purposes, what is meant by sanitary? Because this word is used differently in different countries. So in Brazil and with ENVI is what does sanitary mean?
Well, how can I explain? The sanitary is for health purpose. So when we talk about the sanitary reframing, we talk about the classification reframing, I believe. The person is talking about the reframing. So the sanitary reframing in Brazil is regarding to the classification reframing.
Okay, got it. Are there any new guidance documents that we can anticipate from this new regulation? Do you think ANVISA is going to come up with some additional guidances?
I believe ANVISA can release a new guidance, but generally, when a new RDC comes into force, ANVISA makes a lot of webinars to explain the regulation, but it may release a guidance.
Okay. Got it. Okay. Well, thank you so much. I know we're over time, and all the timelines and everything is part of Claudia's presentation, which again, we will send to you. So do not worry, you've not missed out on anything. And sorry, Claudia, to interject just because we were just getting a lot of questions come through. If any questions that we didn't get to address, please email us those questions. We're happy to address them via email. Thank you again. Thank you, Claudia, for your time. And thank you to all our attendees.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Have a great day, everyone. Bye.